Okay. All right. So, hello and welcome to the second annual New Jersey Youth Transitions Conference, Day 4. It is Thursday. My name is April, and I represent the Camden County Partnership for Children on behalf of the YTC Planning Committee. We will place a registration form in the chat box for you to share your contact information so that we can share the recordings and resources with you from today's workshop. Please note, for those who are seeking continuing education credits, you are required to complete the form, as this is the contact method in which we will send you the proof of attendance. Today's workshops will be hosted via the same link you have joined with today. You can see the full schedule on our website, and I will share the agenda on the screen at the conclusion of today's workshop. Our presenter today is Jeannine Brinkley from SPAN, who will be presenting on the topic, Preparing for Education After High School. Jeannine, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, April. Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to have you here with us. My name is Jeannine Brinkley. I'm actually coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I have a home office, but I work for SPAN Parent Advocacy Network. And I am the Director of Family and Professional Development. So SPAN is delighted to be a partner in the planning and delivery of this conference, and we hope you really enjoy this session. We're going to be talking about preparing for education after high school. So it's one thing to think about education after high school, but there's a lot of things that can happen and should happen during those high school years that increase the likelihood that a young person will be prepared and confident in taking on some education after high school, either post-secondary education or other kinds of things. So let's take a look at our goals for the workshop today. So hopefully at the end of our session today, you will be able to define post-secondary education. It's not just about college. There's a lot of options. And we're going to really think about strategies to prepare youth and young adults to participate in post-secondary education. And then we're going to take a look at some IEP goals and transition services and activities that would lead to a successful transition to post-secondary education, like some case studies and things of that sort. So something to remember, that IDEA, which is the federal law that guides special education, it specifically states that the purpose of special education is to ensure that all children with disabilities are prepared for further education, employment, and independent living. So we're going to focus in today on the education component of that. And all of you who are familiar with the transition planning process know that those are the 3 areas of focus in the IEP in the transition plan. But sometimes it's we don't have as meaningful or robust a discussion about post-secondary education for some kids. But we want to make sure that that's on the table for everybody. And I know you probably know this, but IDEA states that when a child turns 16, the IEP must include some specific items. But in New Jersey, we require that transition planning begins at age 14 or earlier. But both the New Jersey law and the federal law require that at age 16, the IEP team includes specific, measurable post-secondary goals that are based on needs identified using transition assessments in 4 areas: training, education, employment, and independent living. So for today, we're going to be looking at both training and education, because if you think of sort of education after high school as the overarching umbrella, you can have activities that a kid engages in that's considered training, or those considered education, but they're all important to think about.
Sorry to interrupt. I believe you're sharing the screen that is just showing you and not your PowerPoint.
Oh, darn it.
No worries.
Well, thank you for.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I did my test and it worked, but maybe I picked the wrong one to share. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'll fix it right now. Interrupt anytime. Is that better?
Yes, ma'am. Perfect.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
No, thank you for letting me know. I just kept going on and thinking I was showing the slides.
Teamwork.
Okay, here we go. So the first thing we have to do is really think about setting goals. And sometimes that's hard to do, right? We start talking when a child's age 14, and it's hard to even think as far ahead as when they graduate in 4 years. And for some kids, they're going to be taking advantage of staying in school until age 21. So 7 years can be a really long time to predict, right? Even for adults, much less for a young teenager. And kids change so much in those years between 14 and 21. But we need to start with doing some transition assessments. And it's really important that we start thinking about post-secondary education as an outcome throughout a student's educational career, because it has many implications for aspects of their K-12 education. So when we identify post-secondary education of one kind or another as a goal, it should lead the IEP team to identify specific skills and experiences that the student needs in high school that will prepare them for the greatest likelihood of success. The course of study or schedule of classes the student takes each year must be planned to ensure that they will meet the requirements for graduation, right? And we also want to include electives that will support the student's goals for after high school, whether they be electives that will support further education, electives that will support work, electives that will support independent living. But you want to really be strategic in those. And I know the course of study is something we kind of sometimes think is perfunctory, but it really is important to be strategic when we think about those courses. So we want to be cognizant of that, and guidance counselors are a good resource to help you think about, what are the requirements and what are some other opportunities. So when we think about options for education after high school, it includes many options. There are students with disabilities who go to college and get a 4-year or a 2-year degree or certificate. So there are 4-year degrees, which are like your traditional degrees that you think about, but there are also 2 years associate degrees, and then there are college certificate programs. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but there are specific certificate programs that have been set up to support children, young adults with disabilities as they attend college in various ways. There also are things, vocational technical programs for schools. You hear a lot about the need these days for skilled labor, and that's how a lot of those skills are developed in those vocational technical programs. There are apprenticeships. There's adult education and continuing education, employer-provided job training, and pre-apprenticeship programs like Job Corps. So we want to think broadly when we're thinking about education after high school. But we also want to take into some considerations, some questions. So what is realistic and appropriate for the child? What skills will that young person need to be successful in their education after high school? Are they taking the regular high school tests or adapted alternative assessment? Are they taking the ACT or the SAT? And what accommodations are needed? And I actually just saw an article this morning about the University of Pittsburgh not requiring ACT and SAT scores. So that may not be as important in the future, but it's important to know if you're considering those colleges, what kind of testing you need to have done in advance. So when we look at, this is going to look familiar if you were on Dawn's presentation, when we think about the roles and responsibilities in planning for education after high school, the student is critical, right? And we have to help that student think about the possibilities and feel confident that there are options for them. Since post-secondary education often requires resources like money and coordination of supports, family members are really critical to planning for education after high school. Family members can help students understand the importance of additional education after high school, and they may very well have a role in decisions regarding the financing of and transportation to post-secondary educational programs. Teachers play a critical role by providing rigorous academic instruction, holding high expectations, and providing opportunities to develop employment, self-determination, and other independent living skills that are needed in post-secondary education. Special education teachers may also be engaged in helping the student plan access to supports and accommodations. completing and interpreting transition assessment results, and preparing for the IEP meeting. Voc Rehab counselors may provide counseling on post-secondary education as training as one of the required pre-employment transition services that are offered to individual students or groups of students. Vocational rehab counselors may also be involved in the assessment process of determining and possibly providing appropriate services for a student to access and succeed in those pre-employment transition services. And school counselors and related service providers can be involved in providing information and resources through assessments, consultation, and services to assist the student and IEP team as they identify those courses of study and transition services during middle and high school that best prepare a student for success. Now, things like which math course you take in middle school can impact what other math courses you can take in high school, for example. And if you're not familiar with New Jersey's Alicia's law, this is a law that states that a student with a disability who is receiving special education and related services and is entitled to do so until the end of the school year in which they turn 21. However, students whose high school special education program requires instruction beyond the 4 years, they're able to participate with their class in senior class activities like graduation and receive a certificate of attendance. And they can then continue to receive services until they turn 21. For most teens and young adults with disabilities, this is really important because special education is often the primary source of funding for services until age 21. So it's really important to seriously consider, is a child going to graduate completely with their class? Because once they graduate, that's it. Or is there a way to have them continue to receive some services? And they can be creatively delivered, the services between age 18 and 21. They do not have to be in the high school, for example. They could be work experiences, community college courses, community mobility training. It can be a very customized sort of program. And it can build more skills leading to post-secondary education. So we talked about, I mentioned transportation earlier. Sometimes a young person is going to need to be able to maneuver public transportation in order to get to post-secondary education. If they stay in school between 18 and 21, that's something else they can practice. So there's a couple of things that are really important to note that are different between K-12 education and post-secondary education. High school focuses on success, and you have IDEA that governs programming for kids, and you could have a 504 plan. In college, though, the focus is on access, and that happens via a 504 plan and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So these are laws that focus on access and apply to post-secondary education. IDEA does not apply in post-secondary education settings. And it's important for the young person to understand that and the family to understand that in terms of planning ahead. Because one of the things we want to think about is in high school, accommodations and modifications are required, but in college, only accommodations are required. So for example, course requirements could be reduced. But in college, with the focus on access, only accommodations are required. So the learning expectations in high school can be changed, but they're not required to be changed because a student has a disability in college. From birth to age 21, all students have a right to a free, appropriate public education, but a student must meet requirements and have resources to participate in post-secondary education. And then finally, the responsibility to identify students with disabilities and evaluate them and identify strengths and needs, develop an IEP, all of that falls on the school district until a young person is 21. But in college, a student must self-disclose or self-identify that they have a disability and request services. This is why it's really important for students to learn about their disability and the supports they need and practice asking for them, practice those self-advocacy skills while they're in high school. So there are several different kinds of services that are available to support students with disabilities in post-secondary educational programs. Most colleges fall into this category of basic. They can provide extra supports for all freshmen, including writing and study skills instruction. They provide a campus and resource orientation. Most colleges also have writing and math centers available to all students at no charge. And all colleges are required to have a disability services office, but the student needs to self-disclose their needs in order to receive services. And they need to let those folks know what their disability is and how it impacts their learning and what services are needed. This is most appropriate for students who are very effective self-advocates. Then there's another type of post-secondary supports that's a little higher level, and these are called coordinated supports. So these are offered at some colleges, not all. Students need to be moderately active self-advocates, and typically they offer a learning center with services for students with disabilities. They also include, that learning center includes a disability specialist and some other professionals, but most of the support is provided via group workshops to help with learning strategies, advocacy, managing stress, etc. There's no additional cost for services, and they may offer additional accommodations. So that it's really important to research too when you're thinking about college or other post-secondary education, what kind of services are available to support the students. And then the last type is comprehensive supports. These are specialized programs for students with disabilities, and they often offer a non-degree or certificate program. New Jersey has several programs for students who have intellectual and developmental disabilities that fit into this category. There is a flyer in the handout folder. I think that's one of the flyers or one of the handouts that April's directing you to. If not, I'll make sure you get it. But it describes the New Jersey inclusive higher education programs. And there's also an additional handout that provides information about financial aid for comprehensive programs. The website mentioned on this site and on this page is also has a lot of information about scholarships and financial aid, virtual tours, and goes through a lot of ideas for how students with disabilities can prepare to successfully participate. Again, I'll make sure these links get shared in one way or the other if they're not clickable at the end. So we have these different types of programs, but what skills are really needed to be successful in post-secondary education? And it's important to think about this because these are the kinds of skills that we want to have kids working on when they're in middle school and high school, building on that. We don't want to wait until they're 18 and then try to get all the skills to them right at once, right? So we have academic skills like reading, writing, and math knowledge, as well as thinking about how to organize concepts across content areas. So if I know how to write a strong paragraph, and I learned that in my language arts class, I need to be able to apply that when I'm writing a paper in my social studies class or my science class. Attendance, productivity, and class participation are other academic related skills that are needed. So it would be okay to set some goals related to those kinds of things as well. And the other thing we want to really think about as kids are going through high school is we want to fade the supports as much as we can so that students are functioning as independently as possible. They need to reach out and ask for supports when they need them to practice those skills. All of these skills can be included in an IEP if they're areas of need for a young person. So here's another way to think about it, and looking at some concrete examples of skills that students should learn in high school. These will help prepare them for post-secondary education, but honestly, it will help prepare them for living life as a young adult, whether they're at work, at high school, in the community. Some of these skills are typically addressed in high school for all students, but others may need to be a focus of the specially designed instruction for the young person. So one of the things that's important, and we have options today, is we have devices, right? So, and they have a lot of capabilities. And we use them sometimes without even thinking about how they could be a support or an accommodation. So students should be learning to use devices to compensate for areas of need impacted by their disability. So if reading is challenging, then they can learn to have the device read the text aloud to them, summarize sections, find assignments, record homework, all those things. The most notable difference from high school to college is that college students are expected to maintain their own learning and make choices and decisions more independently than in high school. So we want to give those kids opportunities to develop those skills in high school and to make those mistakes in that safe environment where we have safety nets in place, right? So if we provide too many supports, then the child is likely to rely on those and then not be able to shift to making their own decisions after they leave high school. A couple of other things to think about are keep scheduling and keeping to a schedule. Those are crucial skills for college students. If you think back to your own self when you went off to college and the adjustment for to being in charge of all your time, and having to make decisions. There's no one's going to wake them in the morning to get to class or turn their homework in on time. Young people have to make choices when there are scheduling conflicts and be able to modify their choices. So I have a test tomorrow, but there's a party tonight. What am I going to do? Should I study? Should I go to the party? And maybe I thought I was going to go to the party, but I realized I need to study. Those kind of decisions. Self-advocacy is another skill that students can and should be utilizing in high school. Students need to be able to recognize when they need help, and they need to know who to ask for the help. In post-secondary education, for example, it's up to the student to email the professor or the teacher and schedule office hours if they don't understand something or they don't know when an assignment is due. This slide just shares some examples of skills and activities and at different ages that you might be thinking about focusing on those. There's no one formula for this. Obviously, individualized is part of the IEP process, but some things to think about as we're doing transition planning is, at ages 13 to 14, we want to be, helping kids think about learning and practicing personal health care, being able to explain their disability. At age 15 to 16, we want to be doing more concrete, gathering information on post-secondary programs, practice interpersonal communication and social skills. And again, you'd look at these with a particular child or individual in mind and identify which are needs. And then 1 year before leaving school, these are some really important things to think about. The public transportation options and applying for those as needed. Sometimes you have to apply to qualify for what's called paratransit or public transportation for people who have disabilities. You need to be thinking about health insurance coverage options, although now we, up until age 26, kids can stay on their parents' insurance. So that's gives you a little more wiggle room for that. But assuming responsibility for healthcare needs, like, do you have medication you have to take? Do you need to make sure you make a dentist appointment, every 6 months? All those sorts of things. We want to build in responsibilities for the young person. So here's just another way to think about the array of skills that can be learned in practice while a student's in school that will lead them to success. So some of these can happen at school, some at home, and some both, right? So we want to think about those, again, healthcare skills from, personal hygiene to taking vitamins, to medicine, to making appointments, community skills. What do I do in my free time? How do I safely navigate the community? Things that you can do at home, having responsibilities. So in the kitchen, doing laundry, helping with housekeeping, gardening. What do you do in an emergency? All of those things are important skills to build while kids are still in school to ensure their success after they leave school. And here's just a few other specific examples of some transition goals and activities that you might think about as goal areas that would build skills leading to success in education after high school. So, think about a child that your child or another child that and which areas of these do you think would help them in preparing for post-secondary education? And now we're going to take a look at some mini case study examples. And again, if you heard the preparing for work presentation, these are the same young people, but we're focusing in on education this time. And we're going to see some examples of how we can think through the transition process and planning. So if we think about Janelle, she's 16 and has an intellectual disability. So the transition-related assessments that happen included observations, a parent interview, an online career assessment, and evaluations in school-based work settings, including the library, the balloon shop, and the Janelle hasn't had a person-centered planning meeting yet. So the IEP team uses the first half of the meeting to ask Janelle, with her parents' support, to share her hopes and dreams. They use pictures from magazines and actual photographs of Janelle participating in preferred activities for her to point to the pictures and let them know what her preference is. Her preference for working outside with flowers and trees is clear by her smiles and nonverbal communication when she's looking at the different photos. And an assessment in the garden also supports that preference. So the IEP asks Janelle and the IEP team asks Janelle and her parents if they want to share anything else. Her parents state that they would like her to attend a specialized college program for students with intellectual disabilities, so she can improve her independent living skills. So you can see that process results in a post-secondary education goal that's in blue on this slide. After high school, Janelle will attend an inclusive college certificate program for students with disabilities and take courses in life skills, employability skills, functional reading, and math to advance her goal of working in a greenhouse. So you can see there's also that connection between the goals for work and the goals for post-secondary education. And if you have an IEP available to you for a student who's of transition age, I encourage you to take a look at those post-secondary goals that are written there. Oftentimes, they're written much more broadly than this, and this is something you can really see. It's concrete, and we can tell whether it happens or not. And it leads us to then what happens to get to that point. So with that being the post-secondary education goal, these are some of the things we see in her IEP to support moving that way. So her education annual goal in the IEP is that she will demonstrate appropriate social interactions, such as greetings, smiling, and acknowledging questions, with 85% accuracy as measured by a checklist and instructor observation. So this is when she's 16. Clearly, you can see when she's 17, 18, et cetera, we're gonna up the ante and build on these skills. For her transition services, we're gonna visit college programs for students with disabilities in New Jersey, and also provide social skills training and develop a plan to work on personal hygiene and other independent living skills. You can also, wait a second, my computer has mine still. You can also see in the transition services, and when we look at those services, sometimes the family's responsible for some, and sometimes the school's responsible for some, and other agencies. So in this one, visiting college programs, that would be the family's lead on that. The school might help identify those programs, but then providing that social skills training and developing a plan to work on those other skills would be probably a joint effort. And then the activities that go along with that are to obtain and complete applications for the specialized college programs, participate in an inclusive program through the local Parks and Recreation department. I'm so sorry, it keeps jumping. So again, that opportunities to engage with others in an outdoor setting that may be similar to where she might end up later, to give her more real life experiences. Let's look at Maria for a minute. Maria is 16 also, but she experienced a traumatic brain injury at age 14. She has significant visual impairment and challenges with impulse control, along with some mild depression. Right now, she receives some services in the gen ed classroom, supported by an aide, and some in a resource classroom. Print materials are enlarged for her, and she has a behavior intervention plan. Oh my gosh, I moved my hand away from it. Sorry. So Maria did have a person-centered planning meeting this year. It was a difficult meeting because she's still trying to accept that she has lost certain abilities, even though she's made a lot of progress since her traumatic brain injury. Maria's math and problem-solving skills are very strong, and she has good communication skills when she's having a good day. She stated she would like to manage a Starbucks someday, but she's not sure if that's going to be possible. So the IEP team went over various transition-related assessments after hearing from Maria. The assessments were adapted to be accessible for Maria, especially in the area of the visual impairment. She also attended a Virginia Department for the Blind and Visually Impaired program, which provided information on her abilities, capabilities, and challenges, and received some low vision assistive technology, which she uses at home and school. Maria and her parents shared that they want to do, she wants to do the same thing as her friends, and she wants to be better at controlling her behavior, especially when frustrated. Her parents want her to be as independent as possible, get a job, and live on her own someday. So all that information came together to this post-secondary education goal. After high school, Maria will attend community college to work on obtaining an Associate of Applied Science degree in Business Administration. Now let's look at this Iep Goals and Services. So her education annual goal is related specifically to develop those coping skills. She's going to learn strategies to enhance coping, social, and work-related skills by taking specific electives. And remember, we mentioned course of study before. This is where she's picking her courses. So she's going to take career preparation, life skills, social skills, and strategies for success, and pass those classes with a grade of B- or above, given the accommodations. Her services, transition services, she's going to visit the community college to become familiar with the campus, identify barriers, and meet with Disability Services Office. She's going to practice using communication scripts and role playing to have some go-to scripts if she's stressed and to reduce that impulsiveness. And then for transition activities, she's going to try out some different technology that will assist her in keeping organized, participate in mock job interviews, develop and use a daily schedule to stay on task and avoid frustration. So again, you can see this is very robust, and these are the kinds of goals, services, and activities we should be seeing in transition plans as kids are getting ready to move out of high school. And last but not least is Damon. Damon is 16 and he has autism and also has challenges with social skills. He's educated in general education classes and is taking advanced placement biology. He does participate in weekly counseling sessions to address social skills. So in Damon's case, we looked at the different transition assessments to see what he's good at. They had a person-centered planning meeting. He really wants to go to college and become a meteorologist. And he also shared preferences for where he wants to live and what he wants to do during his free time. And his team mapped out some of the steps that he'll need to take to achieve those goals. Damon also shared he would like to go to Rutgers University because it has a good meteorology program and it's close to home. So the team starts to develop the transition plan with this goal. After high school, Damon will enroll in Rutgers and take biology, chemistry, calculus, and a computer science during his freshman year to move towards a career in meteorology. So again, very specific, very focused on the post-secondary goals. And some of his, transition services and activities, his education goal, one is specific to learning Java. So given direct instruction in a computer science class, Damon will learn how to code with Java with 85% accuracy and will complete an independent coding and technology project. His transition services are he's going to visit Rutgers, have a referral to Voc Rehab, and then transition activities. This is where we're going to address, because you can be academically doing a great job, but you may still need some supports in some other areas. So in this case, we're going to provide social skills instruction so he becomes more comfortable expressing himself and working in groups. Also, he's going to take an online SAT prep course and learn how to complete college and financial aid applications with support. And these are just 3 examples of how this can come together to lead to success after high school. And I do have these resources. I also have, you see a QR code on the slide here. If you want, you can use your camera on your phone to scan the QR code and check out our SPAN's Learning After High School webpage. We have a pretty new webpage, and then these are some links to some resources. So we will also make those available, either clickable in the campaign. I'll put them in the chat right now. That's what Dawn did earlier. I can copy them and put them in the chat right now for you. And then if we have questions, I can answer the questions, but also I'm going to go ahead and I can take you and give you a view of our SPAN's Learning After High School page. First, let me copy and paste those into the chat for you. I don't know if we have any questions. I'm going into the chat.
There's none in the chat right now,
That's
but I
fine.
think showing the website would be super awesome.
Okay, well, that's what I'm going to do then. So let me get us to, well, I don't want to show yet because I have too many things open. I should have shut them all before we started. Oh, man. Sometimes at the end of the day, I go, how do I have so many tabs open? Get to our website. It's a weird thing here. Okay, there it is. Here. I think we need to do it differently on website. And we still have some, this is sort of in development. We got it, we wanted to get some information up, but we're adding more to it and restructuring it frequently with additional resources. Why can I not find it? There we go. Okay. And SPAN does partner with 3 of the programs in New Jersey, and I know I'm not showing my screen yet. I'll do that now. We partner with 3 particular post-secondary programs for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So you'll see some specific information on this web page about those programs, but there are also some broader information. So we have just some overview about post-secondary education. I'll scroll down in a minute. Some good information on disability disclosure, some specifics related to post-secondary education options, the IEP, differences in high school and college, and the college application and admission process. So we also have a survey. I should put the link to the survey in the chat. Let me just do that. We're interested in collecting information from families about thoughts related to their child or young person who has a disability and inclusive higher education, whether you're aware of it, whether you might consider it. So I'm going to put that link to the survey in there. It's about a few questions, and we'd really appreciate your feedback if you have a few minutes to complete that survey, even while we're on the Zoom here. So this is our flyer on inclusive higher education programs in New Jersey. There are also 3 great websites. New Jersey now has a transition toolkit that has a lot of great resources. This is the U.S. Department of Ed resources on transition, and then Think College is a wealth of information. And these are the 3 programs in New Jersey that we work with. One is Bergen Community College Turning Point program. One is the College of New Jersey Career and Community Studies program, and the other is Georgian Court University. But we also, in New Jersey, there are many other programs as well. And you can see these differ. The Bergen one's a 2-year program, non-residential. TCNJ is a 4-year program. You get a certificate. And I think in this one, you can live on campus or not. And also, this is a 4-year program at Georgian. Then we have just some of the options we talked about earlier with some definitions, some of the same information that I went over here today. And then I'm probably going too fast. I just want to get down here. The differences between high school and college. So it's because it's really important to understand those. And then this is the disability disclosure. We have a nice link to this resource called the 411 on disability disclosure. It really gives you all the ins and outs of thinking about how much you want to disclose and to whom. And then some information on the college application and admission process. So there's a nice helpful resource to prepare for an interview. Excuse me. There's some specific information about federal financial aid, both for programs for kids with intellectual disabilities. We also have the Family Guide to Transition Services in New Jersey that I'm sure you've seen. And then we have at SPAN, we have a page called Youth in the Know too, that we encourage you to check out. It has some resources specifically for youth and young adults related to, we have our youth hub, which has a blog, and also a youth chat once a week. I think it's Wednesdays at 4 for any young people ages 14 to 26, as well as other resources here. So I encourage you to check these out at your leisure. Oh, and here's a good one on voting. It's your right. Voting election day is coming up. So those are the resources we have. Hopefully you got information that you needed today from this session, and you'll be able to use it with either your own family or families that you work with.
That's excellent. Thank you. We'll give folks just a minute. If they have any questions, please drop it in the
Absolutely.
chat. It can be directed to either Jeannine or myself. And then we can read those out loud.
And I just want to put a plug in too, if you are the parent or caregiver of a young person who's transition age and you feel like, wow, I really need a little help to think about how to get a more robust transition plan for my child, you can reach out to SCAN's Warm Line. I'll put the phone number in the chat here, and one of our family resource specialists will get back to you, and they can help you think through priorities, identify, kind of resources that you can work from, even help you kind of think about how to say what you want to say at the meeting. We also do some great workshops on student-led IEPs. So if you follow us on Eventbrite, you'll be notified when those are coming up. And I know if you heard some of the other SPAN presentations this week, you heard some information about that as well. I should say what that is instead of just putting a random phone number in there.
I did it.
Oh, thank you. Great minds. I'm like, well, okay, it's a random phone number.
No worries at all. All right. Well, while we're waiting to see if people put questions into the chat box, I will just go over some of the closing remarks.
Yep.
So this pretty much concludes the workshop, Preparing for Education After High School from SPAN today. Thank you to Jeannine for sharing your knowledge and your resources and all of those great links. We really appreciate it. The workshop recordings will be made available on our website in November. For those in need of proof of attendance for continuing education credits, you will receive an email soon with your certificate. It is up to your employer to accept this as proof of continuing education. You will not receive a certificate if you did not register using the form shared today. I know there have been just a handful of folks who were unable to click the links that were provided. No worries, we have a record of who has attended each of these workshops, and we will get you your certificate most likely after Friday, after all the workshops are complete. So thank you very much. We do appreciate it, but we'll wait another moment because we do have a couple more minutes left in this workshop's time frame to see if there are any questions that folks might have. But
And
if
not
not,
any questions,
thank
it
you
just
so
means I
much.
did a fabulous job presenting and I have covered everything, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But there's also going to be a Q&A opportunity tomorrow. So definitely check out the conference website so you can see the times for the remaining workshops. We have another one tonight at 6 o'clock. That will be led by me, and I'll be going over Children's System of Care Basics. So feel free to join us later, but tomorrow we still have a couple more workshops and of course a Q&A section. So if you do have questions for SPAN or any of the presentations that happened this week, you can definitely join us for that Q&A session.
Yep, we'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
We have some long days there, April, this week, huh?
Yeah, it's been something. It's been fun.
You're a trooper. I mean, I've been in and out, but I know you've been on everything. That's great.
Yeah. Let's see. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Day 4, October 6th. Yep.
Yep, you got it. That's today.
Yay.
So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 workshops so far today. There's 2 more left. Next one is at 6 o'clock. I don't see anything in the chat, so it's up to you, Jeannine.
I'm fine to wrap. I
right.
have no need to stay on the Zoom. I don't think anyone else is going to tune in new at this point. So let's just say have a great afternoon, and hopefully we'll see most of you tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.